Hey Freight Broker Network, this is Lewis from Freight Skills, and in this video we are going to be talking RFQs, or request for quotes, or request for proposal. A bunch of names these go by, and they are absolutely something you're going to see as a freight broker calling shippers, and you're going to need to learn how to navigate these in order to get freight from bigger, high-profile clients. So stay tuned, make sure you watch until the end of this video, because we are going to talk about everything from what the purpose of them are, why they are used in the first place, and how to use them to your advantage as a freight broker so that you can get more work from your shippers. Now, before we get into how we're going to do all of these things and everything you need to know about RFQs, make sure you like this video, make sure you follow this channel so that more people can see this message, more people can learn how to navigate this amazing industry that is logistics. Now, let's get right into this topic. As you're making sales calls, as you're starting to get the hang of things and getting in with shippers, you're going to notice that some of them will mention the word RFQ. Now, RFQ stands for Request for Quotation, and these are very common among very big shippers, right? We're talking Walmart's, enterprise level customers, publicly traded customers. All of these companies that are moving millions and millions of dollars of freight use these RFQs every single year or every single quarter in order to predict their freight spend, in order to get better prices on their freight. Right? There's a bunch of reasons that they do it. We'll talk about them individually, but all you have to know is that you are going to start seeing these as you start calling people as a freight broker, and you need to understand what it is, what to do with them. Okay, so we know what an RFQ is now, right? It's a request for quotation. What it's going to look like is a giant list of lanes that you have to quote on. It'll have some rules, it'll have miles, it'll have to and from locations, and they might differ slightly between companies, but all in all this is, a request for quotation, is a giant list of lanes that a company runs during the year, and they want you as a freight broker to look at them and quote them and guarantee capacity for a certain period of time at a specific rate. Now let me repeat that a little bit slower. An RFQ is an attempt for a shipper to get a freight broker to guarantee capacity at a specific rate for a specified period of time. Now, let's break that down a little bit. Say in January, shipper A knows that they move a lane from Arizona to New Jersey 150 times per year. It is in that shipper's best interest to get a rate in January and be able to revolve their business around this rate for the rest of the year. So for example, they'll go to someone like you or me or another freight broker and they'll say, I have this lane 150 times. If I gave you 150 lanes, how much will you charge me? It's our responsibility now, it's up to us, to go and find them a rate that not only can we make money on, not only can the carriers make money on, but they can also make money on for the rest of the year. And now when I explain it like that, hopefully you see how inefficient and how difficult this is, because rates change by seasons, capacities, economies. Right now we're almost going through a recession. Rates are all over the place. Driver shortages, equipment shortages, emergency, holiday weekends. So many factors influence rates on a daily and weekly basis. It's really difficult for you to just say, for the rest of the year, you have to pay $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it is, right? So I personally do not like RFQs. I avoid them at all costs. Sometimes I don't even fill them out. It depends on the customer, but we're gonna get into that, right? So you have to understand the purpose behind these RFQs. The purpose is not to give you freight. The purpose of an RFQ is to save a shipper money. It's to make them more efficient so that they can quote business knowing that their transportation cost is locked in at X amount, right? So you can imagine if a shipper sends out 1,000 RFQs or 100 RFQs and they have all these people competing, they're going to be able to find the best rate. And now let's talk about why this is inefficient for them. Because when a shipper uses an RFQ, they're not factoring in all of these things that we know as brokers happen throughout the year. They're not predicting fuel prices rising. They're not predicting capacity issues. They're not predicting seasonality of certain lanes. They just look at a piece of paper, they get their rate, and they think that for the rest of the year they're going to move that lane at that rate. And that's simply not the case most of the time, right? Now you understand why RFQs are used, what they are. You're not going to be shocked when you see an email that says like, hey, so-and-so, fill out this RFQ and we'll talk about getting free. If they're so disadvantageous for us as freight brokers, why do we bother filling them out? That's what I'm going to explain right now. It is more than likely that a company that is issuing an RFQ has millions of dollars of freight behind that RFQ that you are not even seeing. You're not at that stage yet. You have not done anything to build rapport with that customer. You haven't done anything to earn their trust, so to speak, right? So how do we do that? The best way to build trust with someone is to do what they ask you to do. Even though I hate them, I despise them, I think they ruin the industry, I don't enjoy them at all. If some customer sends me an RFQ, I am going to fill it out to the best of my ability. I'm going to do it with a smile on my face because that is what you have to do to earn the trust of your customers, right? And sometimes it works out in your favor, most times it does not. Sometimes they take up a lot of your time and your resources and they don't produce any return. But you can't afford not to do them because the goodwill that you build with your customers by filling these out is a lot more valuable than your ego not wanting to waste your time on cheap freight. Okay, so you do have to fill out these RFQs when you get them. It's just a matter of learning how to do it artfully so that you don't waste a lot of time on them and not get any business. The short answer to this question is when you get an RFQ, fill it out to the best of your ability. It does not have to be perfect, but you have to keep two things in mind. Number one, you have to keep in mind, am I making a promise that I can't keep? Because if you guarantee capacity, if you guarantee a lane, if you guarantee a rate, and you cannot hold that promise for the rest of the year, all you're going to do is create a bad reputation with your shipper. That's not good for business. That's not good for your future of your business. It's not good for getting future lanes from that customer. Service failures don't bode well with shippers who have to keep a tight schedule and a tight budget. The number two thing that you have to keep in mind is, are you going to lose money on the deal? There are some cases where if you're getting a certain volume of shipments, it makes sense for you to lose money on one or two shipments in order to secure the rest, right? Like if I have a list of 100 shipments that I can cover and I know I can cover them, and I will lose money on one or two of the lanes to provide a convenience for the customer of only utilizing my services, I will lose money on those rates, right? So keep that in mind. You don't want to break promises and you don't want to lose money a majority of the time, okay? So don't avoid RFQs, but do that with those 2 points in mind. So how do I go about filling these things out? Because sometimes these things are thousands and thousands of lanes. It's not really efficient for you to spend all of your time over any given day filling out these RFQs because this takes away time from other business building activities. You can't call customers while you're filling out RFQs. You can't call carriers. You can't do your accounts payable, your receivables. You can't manage your employees. You can't do anything if you're filling out a 10,000 lane RFQ. So how do I do it? I'm going to share the exact tools, the strategy, everything that I do. Number one, the first thing I do when I get an RFQ is I run the miles on every single lane. I use a tool called DAT RateView, and if you go to my link below and you are a new subscriber to DAT, which is my favorite tool, load board, everything, we use it every day. I have a discount link down below where your first month, if you are a new subscriber, is on me. This is a partnership I have with DAT, and if you join through my link, you will get the first month completely free as long as you're a new subscriber. So go check that out, right? So the first thing I do is I run all of these miles through DAT. I get the mileages. I sort the miles in an Excel spreadsheet by length. In general, as a broker, your most competitive lanes are going to be the ones with the most miles in between them. So I'm taking everything over 750 miles, and that's low. But I'll go as low as 750 miles and I'll go up to 2,000, 3,000 miles, the highest I can possibly go. From there, I will take the highest, the most mileage lanes, and I'll actively work them as if I had those loads right now. So if there's like some New Jersey to Cali's, some Houston to Michigan, Houston to Wyoming, Houston to Seattle, like stuff like that I know is really long. I'm gonna pretend I have those lanes, and I'm gonna try to quote them with active carriers. I'm gonna get to know carriers, who's in the area, who likes the market, what do the seasons look like. You know, I'll spend a lot of time on these lanes to give a realistic price, because I know if I get those lanes, that's where I'm gonna net the most profit. It's where I'm gonna be the most value to my customer. After I get those lanes, there's maybe 10 to 20 of the longest lanes that I'll do. What I'll do is I'll run that whole list through a rate program, right? I'll use DAT. That's just the one that I use. It's the one that I endorse. I wouldn't go anywhere else. They're the most reliable, in my opinion at least. Their rate program, what it'll do is it'll combine all of the average prices of these lanes, and it'll spit out what the rates are going for. Now, I don't take that at face value, because it's usually on the low end or the high end, and it doesn't account for any of those things that we talked about, like recessions and driver shortages and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll take those rates now that are spit out by a machine, and I'll add 10 to 15% to that cost, because that's what I'm expecting to pay. Remember, we have to quote these lanes through the entire year. If we do an RFQ and we're only looking 1 month out or 1 week out, we're gonna get burned every single time. It's not worth it. So I'm adding 10 to 15%. I need to give myself a cushion so that I can deliver on the promise that I'm making. If I promise a low rate and then the rate is astronomical down the road, I have to lose money. I'm lying to my customer. It's not good for business. You're adding 10 to 15% over that cost. After you do that, you need to add another 10 to 15%, and that will be your profit margin. You have to remember, the biggest carriers, the biggest brokers in the world are quoting on this business. These are not high profit margin lanes. When you get an RFQ, your goal is to maximize volume. So you want to make sure that you're making a little bit of money, but you have to understand that you are sacrificing a large profit margin for a long-term relationship. So your net profit on these loads is going to be anywhere between 5 and 12% on average. I'm not doing an RFQ and looking to hit it out of the park and make a 25-30% margin. It's just not going to happen. If it does, then you found a unicorn of a customer, and I'd love to know how you did it. But it's not realistic, and 9 times out of 10 it's not going to happen. So don't set those expectations. You'll just be disappointed. All right, so after I get these lanes, I have them all quoted. I organize them in the spreadsheet in the exact same way that they want them. RFQs come with very specific instructions that you have to follow. Very easy to put it together. I send that off to the customer. After I send it off to the customer is where the real work begins. Because after I do that, I'm not interested in that RFQ anymore. I'm interested in the freight that they're moving on a daily basis that didn't go through that RFQ. The emergency orders, the long hauls that weren't included there, the one-off orders that happen every month or two, but they never really know the volume and the frequency. So after you send that RFQ in, what that does is that opens the door for you to go back to that sales rep and say, hey, you know, I did what you asked. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. By the way, is there anything else that I can help you with in the meantime while you review all of those rates? 7, 8 times out of 10, they will have stuff for you to work on, stuff in the spot market. That's where you can make more margin because the rates are better, you'll get better carrier capacity, and you'll get a better idea of how their business runs by this point. Okay, so this is the best way I can make a digestible lesson on how to handle these RFQs. I'm going to do some more content about RFQs. Maybe I'll make like a mock RFQ and do a little exercise where I go through and do this. That will be the next video on RFQs. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this content. Like I said, if you don't have a rate tool, or if you don't have a load board, I have a partnership with DAT. That is my preferred load board of choice. It's the only one I endorse because it's the only one that I personally have used for the last 15 years as a broker. I have that link down below, and if you join through my link and you're a new subscriber, you will get the first month completely on me. That means you're not paying for the first month, so you can try out the software, get to know it, get some value from it, and then you will be able to have access to the best load board, best rate tool in my opinion. So definitely go check that out. And of course, before you go, make sure you join my Free Freight Broker Network. It is a free group where I hang out all day talking brokering, shippers, carriers, all that great stuff. Just go to the link below, click on that, enter your info. I will shoot you a private link and let you in. So until the next video, I will see you soon.